Yeah, we are in the place of
Alright, I hope you'll forgive me, but I'm going to do a voiceover again. Again, my GoPro camera did not record any audio, or at least it was very selective as to when it was recording audio. So right here I've gotten the long side of the wall here, kind of on the right under the TV. I got some of the wood pulled up, and then I'm starting to undercut the baseboards over on this wall under the window. Now what I found is that this wall under the TV, I did not undercut. I planned on putting quarter round against that wall. There was quarter round there before, so I thought it would be okay to just do it again. But I found that it was really frustrating to try and get it straight according to the hallway on the far right there, kind of behind the piece of couch. I was trying to get it right. I even pulled out my transit laser and laid it on its side and tried to get it all straight and everything, and trying to make sure the wall wasn't crooked or something compared to where I was putting the floor originally. And what I ended up doing is just putting a couple layers of flooring in, and even 4, 5, 6 layers in, I was trying to fight with keeping the flooring straight. And after I got 8, 10 layers in, then it was good. So this is me using the transit level to try and make sure the wood is straight, make sure I hadn't taken out too much of that first board, make sure I wasn't taking out too little. And the boards were a little bit crooked on the wall, probably by a quarter to a half an inch from end to end. There was kind of a bow in the middle there, and so it was throwing me off pretty bad. But again, I ended up just doing the first couple rows, calling it good, and then as I kept going, I found that it got better as I went. Now I wish I could have started along this wall, or a long wall like this, but it just wasn't the case. I'm using my pry bar here, my little pull bar, pry bar, to hold the flooring back so it's not hitting up against the baseboards as I'm hammering in that second line. And this was pretty difficult. Ended up having my wife stand on it to hold it in place and just helping. Anyway, those first couple rows were really painful because, again, I'm floating this out from the wall, trying to keep it perfectly straight and everything else, and it just ended up not mattering because I'm almost 20 feet from the last board, so I could have just done all of the rows together and then push the flooring, because again the whole thing floats, push the flooring over to where I'm going to have the quarter round under the TV there, and then it would have all been fine. I had my kids help me stack the piles of wood by size. I have 3 different sizes of wood here, a narrow board, a medium board, and a wide board, or small, medium, large kind of thing. The smaller board was about 3.5 inches. The middle board was 5 inches, I want to say, and then the wider board was about 6.5. There's about 1.5 inch difference between each board. And I was trying to alternate the width of the board at the same time as I was going and trying to stagger seams and everything, and I kept finding that to get just right under this door jamb or along that wall, I would continually be using the wider boards instead of the skinny board. So I ended up having a giant pile of the skinny board and then just doing 2 or 3 rows, well, 2 rows at the maximum of the narrow board or the small board, and then doing a medium board and then another small board and then a wide board and then a small board and so forth and so on. So this is me just laying out the boards ahead of myself, tongue away from the wall or towards the old floor, and then I could pretty easily go back through and just hammer them all in. My wife was watching me, and she kept reminding me things that we learned the last time we did flooring like this, was that if I lay out the boards like this, I was able to pretty quickly just go through and hammer them all in and basically be done. So I chose to be smart and listen to my wife and then I got going pretty fast. Now, another thing that I learned that I'm doing wrong here that I learned later on is that if you put the long side of the board in, you just saw me put down the short end of the board, and then I'm going to hammer along the wide side of the board. If you do it this way, you end up hammering a lot, and you're shifting the flooring, and your likelihood of damaging the board is a lot higher and everything else. Later on, what I started doing is I'd put the board in on the long side, push it over against the short side of the board, and by long side I mean like the 48-inch side of the board, and then hammer towards the 4-inch side of the board. So here you're seeing me hammer on the long side of the board, and then either later on here or in future videos you'll actually see me hammering from the short side of the board, and it went a lot faster. So my son steps in here to start helping me lay out the boards. I showed him put the tongue out, do this, do that, that kind of thing. And I love teasing him because he thinks it's funny. You'll notice as I'm doing a little bit of this, the boards shift a lot, and you'll see me go back and hammer on another board again and so forth. So in the future videos I'll show you a much better way to get these boards in place and faster. I think right here I'm just explaining what I'm doing and what I'm looking for and stuff to him. So on this part I'd also put the long side in first and then hammer back towards the floor to kind of get it under the baseboard. That's how I did that. You can see me here again. If with all the boards laid out, you don't get up and down. You just kind of keep on going and going and going. And if you do the boards like that, it also gets easier to do multiple runs or multiple rows, and then at the end you can do a few cuts at the same time. So here I'm showing my 6-year-old how to measure what the numbers mean. He's still learning his numbers. So this way we can both be looking at the same thing, and I've got that measuring tape on my pocket again. So it's important to remember which side you're measuring from, because there's kind of an angled cut here. As I come around that corner there, right by where he's sitting, and then I have to take the board and get it in the right direction. Now, I didn't wear gloves most of the time. In fact, I don't think I wore gloves at any point, and it was actually all right. I got a few calluses or blisters or whatever, but it wasn't anything painful by any means. That tape would from time to time hurt my hand or seemingly give me a little paper cut, but it wasn't really ever that bad. So I'm teaching him here how to mark the board and what we're looking for, and to draw a dark enough line, those kinds of things. And he just loves this kind of thing. So here I'm measuring from the previous board to the baseboard at a 90-degree angle to see where to intersect that 45-degree angle that he just helped me draw on. And I know that looks like a speed square, but that's just a piece of flooring that I had laying around. It had a 45-degree cut on it and a 90-degree corner on it, so it was pretty quick and easy to make that what I needed it to do. And again, as I kept going through the project, this process, this part of measuring and cutting and stuff, got faster. So you do learn and you do get faster. However, it feels like you're not quite good at it I guess I could say you're not quite good at it until you're done. Or at least if you don't do this kind of thing very often. This is where the kids wanted to jump in and help, and they were begging to help the whole time, so I found a place, a way for them to help. Now these boxes are probably 50, 60 pounds, which is just as much or more than they weigh. So they're certainly not moving them themselves, but still a way for them to help. And they loved it. If anything, I was trying to get them out of the way more than I was trying to get them to help. So here I cut open the 4 boxes and I show them how to stack them. And I let them just kind of have at it. So again, this is the tongue facing the right way so that I'm not having to flip around each and every board. This also puts a lot of weight on this side of the floor, on the flooring that I've already laid down, which makes it a little bit less likely for it to be moving around while I'm hammering on stuff for the next little bit. And these boxes of flooring are great. They have 4 of each board type connected, so the 2 middle-sized boards are the same width as one small board and one wide board, or one large board. So that's how they pack them. It makes it a really nice kind of uneven width across the floor, and as you're spreading out the seams and everything, it starts to look really, really good. Not only the color, but the style and everything was awesome. I'm still working with the kids to try and teach them how to do things a little bit neater. You can see that some of the stacks are kind of falling over, so we fix those here. But as I teach them more and more to do things a neater way, or a little bit less cluttered, they seem to actually like it more. They seem to enjoy the work more, and they seem to respond to the instructions a little bit better. When I say keep them straight, they like it because they can see themselves progressing and doing better. And of course, it's break time for him. And the kids were awesome. I could say, hey, why don't you clean up all the board or the boxes and clean up all the bags, and they'd jump in, they'd start helping, and the dogs would come sit in the way and everything. I think on the right here, my wife is trying to measure my son to do some school shopping. This was a few weeks back, and so she was ordering stuff online and trying to get everything ready for him. This is my daughter moving the piles and listening and following instructions and doing awesome, actually. These guys are super helpful, like I said, and sometimes it's almost to the point of being annoying or frustrating, but sometimes you got to back off and let it happen. So there's me doing the short board and hammering in the long side of the board and doing the short, putting the short side together, hammering along the long side. And I didn't use any of those hammering tools. I just used a piece of board that I had cut off pretty early on, and every time it wears out, you grab another one. But those boards are the best for this. This is me going out to cut a few pieces. Get my son's ear protection, mine on, and everything. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more.
Yeah, we are in the place to be. Yeah, yeah, yeah.